Welcome back to Kings of the North. Doug Maurice, Bill Landis, and right off the top, special guest. So happy to be joined by Pat Narduzzi, the head coach of the 4-0 Pitt Panthers. Pat, thanks for joining us on Kings of the North.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's great to be on with you guys today, especially in an open weekend. I'm not as stressed out, so I appreciate you guys having me on and having me on this week.
Awesome.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time, Pat. A lot of folks talking about your guys' start, talking about how well you've played offensively, how explosive you guys have been. And, obviously Eli Holstein gets a lot of notoriety there. Des Reed, your receivers. I'm wondering, as you've gotten off to the start, though, who are there guys who have been like a little more unsung, I guess, maybe not gotten quite as much as attention as your quarterback, as your backs, as your skill guys have gotten if you started 4-0?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, which one of those guys, it seems like the ball has been spread around. So I think everybody on offense has gotten a chance. Maybe the one guy that hasn't, that's, done a great job blocking for us is Gavin Bartholomew. I mean, everybody thinks about him as a pass catcher, as a tight end. He's dynamic. We haven't got him the ball down the field for whatever reason, but that's coming. But we expect, maybe, Gavin is the unsung hero but he's the dude before the season starts.
Pat, so this is a Northern college football show. We deal with the 28 power conference teams in the northern half of the country. And man, you could not be more of a son of the North. Have you ever coached or lived ever any further south than Cincinnati, right? This is a whole northern experience in your football life, is it not?
No question about it. You think about like where you're from, where your roots are, really grew up in this area and I've never left the area. I had a chance to go down to Texas A&M one time with Kevin Sumlin when he got the job, and it took me about a week to turn it down. D'Antonio was all mad at me, like, what's taking so long? What the heck? But, I ended up staying at Michigan State back in the day. But, I had a chance to go down there. But I feel like if I would have gone down there, I might not be the head coach in the North at the University of Pittsburgh. I think things happen like that. So you stay regional. Had a chance to go out to Colorado. What do I know about Colorado? How am I going to recruit out there? So I've been really choosy with where to go, and the North is the way to go.
Bill, Pat, I got a sword here on this show. Absolute. I want to give you this sword for turning down Texas A&M and staying up here, brother. We got to keep the North in the North. That's a huge move for the North. Was it hard, though? I mean, they're probably throwing oil money at you. Was that a difficult decision?
It was more money than I was making up there. But, too many coaches make bad decisions based on money. It's about location. It's about where you're going, what you're doing. I was happy where I was with D'Antonio. Money is not everything. I mean, and it's the same thing in this NIL game that people are playing nowadays. You hear some of the bad news that's happening out there. I mean, it's like, it's not about the money. Like, you're looking for where the money's going to be in 3 or 4 years down the road, not where it is today. We've all worked our way up to where we are. I've taken the hard path, and to me, that's the way you build yourself. And, was it hard? Yeah, because it was a lot more money. But there was the unknowns of like, will I be happy down here? One of the big mistakes they made was I took my wife. I'm like, honey, this is real. We got to go check this out. Someone just got the job, and they took her shopping for a house. So the realtor took her out, and they're looking for a house, and started talking about wild pigs in the backyard. My wife's like, we ain't dealing with any wild pigs, man. There's no wild pigs in the North. Okay.
Oh my God.
That was one of the closers there too. Should have never taken her out to look at houses that never to come up.
What we're going to make that shirt. Ain't no wild pigs in the North. We're sending that to you and your wife, Pat. That is the best. God, we love it because we love Northern football, and why we do this show, Pat, is because we want to make sure that it gets the credit and attention it deserves. But over time, sometimes there's a lot of good head football coaches up here in the North, but I feel like sometimes the money takes people south. And I think maybe in the past, some guys have thought, well, I have to go there to win. I have to go to their coach at the highest level. And I don't think that's ever been true. And I certainly don't think it's true now. And you're a shining example of what you can do when you know your roots. It doesn't mean that you're parochial, but you know who you are, you know where you best fit, and fit matters. And you're the shining example, man. I hope other coaches watch this and follow the Pat Narduzzi model.
I've tried to educate guys, in the past on just making the right moves. It's all about making good choices, right?
Yeah.
In life and in business, and obviously the coaching business, you got to make good decisions. And young coaches just want to, look for that new shiny little logo that's on the shirt and try to find something different. And you're exactly right. I hope they do pay attention and ask questions, because the football in the Big Ten, and again, I look behind you, the Big Ten, Michigan State, I mean, it does, the ACC, the Big Ten, I mean, everybody talks about the SEC, hey, more money doesn't matter. I mean, everybody talks about all this, the different, TV deals you're getting, but like you can win with all that, without all that. You don't need, all the money. Money doesn't win, football and toughness. And again, the Northern football toughness that we've got up here, I think pays off.
Pat, you guys in your non-conference schedule played 3 teams from Ohio and obviously your rival in West Virginia. And I'm wondering if that regionality matters at all to you to kind of keep it close to home, or if that's just sort of the way it worked out and you'll play whoever they put on your schedule every year.
I'm going to play whoever they put on my schedule. It's the first time I really just even thought that, we are 3-0 in the state of Ohio, which is not easy to do. But and then, it just happened that way. We've been down to Tennessee and we played different teams here, non-conference wise, but it's just kind of the way it panned out this year. And we're looking forward to North Carolina and getting out of state here and getting out of and going down to show a little Northern toughness.
Oh, we love it. I do think we've talked a lot on this show, Pat, about like, especially in a world where conferences are less geographic than they've ever been. I think the non-conference, when you can make it regional, I was at the Pitt Cincinnati game, the backyard brawl, like those games are so important. Those are 2 shining examples of, for your fans, for fans in this area, what great experience for them. So we're so excited that you played those games. We're maybe going to try to crawl in your head a second here, Pat, if you don't mind. From afar, before the backyard brawl, you were sort of talking about with your assistant coaches, like, right, protect your family, talking with the program, like a big rivalry like this. You want to make sure that you go out and do everything you can for your loved ones in this game. And then last week with Youngstown State is obviously very personal with your dad coaching there. Is there something, it just feels like it's been a personal year for you, right? That you've talked about family. You've talked about things like this in a world where the sport has become more of a business. Why has that been where your head and your heart have been this season?
I think, every week you got to make it personal some way. I mean, to me, football is my life. It's passion for this game. And I tell our kids every week to find, who are you playing for this week? Like, what are you playing for and who are you playing for? And I'm always going to find something I'm playing for, something I'm angry about, something that gets you pissed off and angry to go out and play. And I think that's what it is. And last week, it was something that happened 40 years ago that, just hit me. And we played them 2 other times. I've never brought it up. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But ever since I played in rivalry games with that, I see, the Spartans, I see, Michigan right above it, but playing in that rivalry made me understand what a rivalry was, to where I always, every year I play a rivalry game, whether it was Penn State here a few years ago or was playing West Virginia, those become personal because it's something you have to live with for 365 days a year. If you don't win it, you live with it, and you got to live with it the next day and the next day. And it can be brutal. Some of these big time, rivalries like a West Virginia Pitt is, or a Michigan State, Michigan. I didn't get the chance to. I played at Rhode Island. We played Brown. Brown wasn't one of those. Brown, Rhode Island. It just wasn't one of those that you go, oh yeah, this is the one. But from my experiences, at Michigan State playing Michigan and losing to Mario Manningham and Chad Henne on a last second, double move to the field when we knew Chad Henne was going to throw a double move to Mario anytime he was lined up the field. We get beat, and my kids got to take the abuse the next week in school. That's what you're talking about, is protecting your family. I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to make sure that we cover that double move, that we hit the quarterback, and that we win that football game.
Pat, is that mindset at all what has allowed your team to play so well in the fourth quarter, especially the Cincinnati and West Virginia games? Those are, games that have a lot of swings in them, but kind of when it came down to it in the crunch time, and I'm not just talking about Eli, I'm talking like your whole team just finds ways to make plays in those big moments. And maybe those are kind of the things that swing your season one way or the other. Is the stuff you're talking about there with finding a way to find that edge, no matter where it is that what allows you guys to play that way in those moments?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think this football team's got a lot of grit to them. I think they're tough. They're going to find a way to get it done. We talk about finding ways. Doesn't matter how we get it done. Let's just get the win on Saturday and be 1-0. But we've had a lot of success here. I saw a stat earlier in the week on my open week when I was on the road. Someone sent me, like, I think we're the 3rd winningest ACC team in the last 10 years. And we've won more. I think it's Clemson number one. I forget who number two was, but we were number three, and we've been number two for a while. We've won a lot of football games here. We've had success. We've really turned this place around. And I think last year was one of the most disappointing years I've been a part of as a coach. And I think just our off season, when we got here in January, it's like, okay, like this is, came back, off of, the season. It's kind of like it's starting now. Okay. It started in January where we're 4-0. It didn't just start September or August 31st when we opened up. And I think that's kind of where we've had that little different attitude. I mean, again, making it personal. Like, how'd that feel? Like, how did you like 2023? It's 2024 and we were moving on and we weren't taking anything for granted. I think we, thought that we were just going to show up and win football games a year ago. So our football team has a little different attitude and they don't want to taste what they tasted last year. I think when we get to that fourth quarter, we've seen our kids step up and find ways to make plays.
Pat, I love this stat. I've trotted it out a couple times, but in the 21 and 22 college football seasons, those 2 years, there were 9 power conference teams in those 2 seasons that won at least 20 games. And those 9 teams were Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oregon, Utah, and Pitt. That is basically a list of the best college football programs in the country. And you guys are on that list. 2 great years. You just mentioned the 3-9 season last year. You've been there a decade. It's only your second losing season. But I'm always curious, when you have a year like, did you feel like you went through the fire and sort of came out the other side? Did anything change about you as a coach when you've had so much success and then you have a season like that?
I mean, I can't tell you anything changed, but just kind of, you understand, like, hey, thing can happen to anybody, right? It can happen to Alabama, it can happen to Ohio State, it can happen to Pitt. And you thought you were just going to roll, but every team is a little bit different. And for whatever reason, our guys didn't buy into what we were doing or what we we're saying. So I can't say we've changed anything different.
Okay.
I'm going to coach the way I coach. I'm not going to change, what we, the recipe that we've had for years. But it's just, a different football team. And sometimes you got to get knocked down to figure it out. And I think our guys learned a big lesson from a year ago. And I think we'll continue to learn as we play this year to see what kind of football team we are.
Pat, I want to ask you about your quarterback, Eli Holstein. We have a few minutes here left with you. Just playing like one of the better guys in the country at that position, 3 or 4 games, but been especially impressive late in games. And I'm wondering, as a coach and as a staff, if you knew or had a hunch at all that he might have that sort of clutch gene or whatever you want to call it for that late game performance, or if that's not something you really discern until you put your quarterback in those moments.
I don't think you find out about it until you get in those moments. I mean, you look at it. He started his first game here at home against Kent State, one of those northern teams in Ohio, and you didn't know what you were going to get that day. I mean, he won the job in camp. You get into that game, you go down to Cincinnati, and every week you're learning something new about him. Well, we didn't know because he doesn't get hit in preseason camp that he's going to be able to get face mask, get spun around, and still go gain 20 yards on a run. It's like, this guy's crazy. And then get up and start to yell at the officials like, where's the call? And we got no call. But like he's got some stuff to him like that you didn't know. There's so many little things you find out about how cool he is in the pocket, and you didn't know he's going to protect the ball like he has. I knock on some wood here. He's done a heck of a job of protecting the football, which is number one priority. We're winning the turnover ratio, which is going to allow you to be 4-0.
Pat, we always like to ask questions like this here on Kings of the North because we celebrate Northern football. Do you have a great snow football memory as a coach or a player from your past that you remember a game like that?
Oh, gosh, I think up in East Lansing, I think global warming is killing these snowy games, right?
I know.
It's killing the North. It's making us soft up here. But, there's probably, I think we got a Penn State win, beat another Northern team, at Michigan State in some, maybe an inch and a half of snow. But we haven't played in any deep snow, like we did back, in the days in the front yard.
Yeah. No, I was at the Alabama-Wisconsin game 2 weeks ago. It was like 90. I was like, oh, we got it. We're getting Bama in the North finally. And everybody was sweating. I was like, what is happening to this world? Do you ever think, Pat, just like do you kind of get what we're doing here? We want to contextualize and celebrate Northern football because we kind of feel like the South maybe gets an outsized amount of attention in this sport. Do you kind of get our gist here?
I really get your gist, and I appreciate what you guys are doing for college football and for for the Kings of the North, I guess. Because you're exactly right. I mean, you're exactly right. I feel like the ACC gets disrespected. I mean, I've played in the Big Ten, or coached in the Big Ten, I should say, for 8 years, and now I'm going on year number 10 in the ACC. I think the ACC is athletic as you can get. I think it's more athletic than the Big Ten. I've gone on record and said that. I've done both. I can't compare it to the SEC.
Yeah.
But I think the toughness and the athletic ability of what Pitt is going to give you, up here in the North is exactly right. And there's something to it. And, and it takes a bunch of different things to get that done, whether it's coaches and players and all the different, the leadership at your university. I think I really do get what you guys are talking about. And I believe I might be on this podcast with you someday, fighting the same fight, because we do get disrespected up north.
And listen, man, you're 4-0. If the phone rings and you see Texas A&M on the caller ID, hang up, brother. All right? Don't let them come for you. Don't let the South come for Pat Narduzzi.
It ain't happening. It's not happening. I mean, I made I've turned down enough head coaching jobs to go, this is the spot I want to be in. And, there's been northern schools come and get me. I've said no. Okay. So, it's a spot you want to lay down your legacy and continue to win. We've been to 2 championship games here in the last 9 seasons. Okay. Anybody else been there? There's only been 3 teams in the ACC win a championship. It's been Clemson's won a bunch of them. We've won one. And then last year, Florida State got one. Okay. You see how they're responding, down south, I guess. Right. So,
okay.
But, we're working on it.
All right. And last thing real quick, I talked to a Pitt fan at a tailgate the other day, and he said, we're going to have an awesome season. We've got Nardog. Is Nardog okay with you? We're not going to call you Nardog. We have too much respect for you for that. Do people call you Nardog?
You know what? You can call me whatever you want. My dad in the door, I don't care what you call me. I don't care what everybody else says on the outside. I pretty much stay right in my zone, in my lane. And, and again, some people go crazy by listening to, what's happening outside. But, I've heard Nardog, my dad was called Doozer. Okay. So I'm called Doozer. Okay. Well, when I was a little guy, we were called Little Doozers, because Big Doozer was, used to be a show called back in the day, I don't remember if you remember this, but back in the day in Northeastern Ohio, a big show called Doozers Bruisers. That's what they were.
Okay.
So it was a big TV show. So, hey, Nardog, whatever,
Okay. We'll call you 4-0. How about that? Pat Narduzzi, head coach of the Pitt Panthers, son of the North through and through. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time on Kings of the North, Pat.
Hey, anytime. I appreciate you guys and what you do. And thanks for having me on today. Hail to Pitt.